And today we are making iconic British meals with a twist. Is that a good enough intro for you? On the menu today, 3 British classics. I am making a prawn cocktail without the prawns. We're going to use something else. A steak and ale pie without the steak. We're going to use something else. And my favourite dessert of all time, a bread and butter pudding. 3 indulgent, iconic British dishes that you're going to learn how to make today, plant-based and delicious. First up, we're going to get the pie out the way because that takes the longest to make, and we are making our pastry homemade from scratch, rough puff pastry. It's simple. First up, get a bowl with some flour in and add a pinch of salt. Then I'm going to add some ice cold plant-based butter cubes. Stir the butter into the flour until each piece of butter is coated in flour. So now add enough water to bring this together into a ball of dough. Remember guys, the full written recipe is on my website, link below the video. Lightly flour your work surface and rolling pin, and then roll out the pastry into a large rectangle. Of course, you'll see big chunks of the butter running throughout this now, but they're going to disappear as we continue to roll this over and over again. I've rolled this into a large rectangle now, and I'm going to fold it into 3 and get it into the fridge to cool for about 10 to 15 minutes. And then we'll get the pastry out and roll again and repeat the process. Okay, so that's the first fold and chill. We got to repeat that process about 4 times, and that's how you create those layers. Even with rough puff pastry, we're going to get some lovely layers. Each time you roll it, you want the, I don't know how to describe this guys, you're going to have to help me here. You want the folded side that way, so you always want to roll the opposite way to what you folded that last time. God, that was hard. All right, to simplify it, you need to roll against the fold. Each time the butter is going to melt in, and just use the palette knife and the rolling pin to keep the edges really nice and square and neat. Okay, so next roll and fold. By the way, you can put yours in the freeze if you want a quick chill. You don't have to put it in the fridge. And you can see the butter is now melting in between the layers. It's getting distributed nicely. So this is the 5th and final roll. Well, I think it is anyway. What I like to do is roll it out and actually see if I can see any butter still running through it. If I can, I'll repeat the process one more time. So this pastry is now done. We've just got to pop this in the fridge until we're ready to use it on top of our pie. So that means I need to get on with the pie filling. So steak and ale pie, always got that rich filling. I need to recreate that. Obviously I'm plant-based, so I don't eat steak. I'm going to be using mushrooms, but don't be put off because I will make this as rich as any steak and ale pie has ever been before, because I got some tricks up my sleeve on how to do that. First up, I'm going to get the mushrooms into my pan, cooking as high as I can, getting them caramelizing golden, because then they're going to release all their flavor. So I've got a selection of mushrooms, mainly oyster mushrooms here, but get whatever mushrooms you can get your hands on and get them in and just cook them in the same way. They'll taste fantastic. Meanwhile, I'm going to chop up some veg. Got my onion, carrot, garlic and celery. Always have a little scrap bowl. So it's always handy to keep you tidy in the kitchen, and this can just go straight into your compost heap if you have one. I recommend getting one if you don't. Before we add this veg, caramelize these up a little bit more, little bit of salt and pepper, season at every stage so that you build depth of flavor throughout your pie. Yeah, buddy! Couple sprigs of rosemary going in, and some sprigs of thyme. Oh, beautiful! Cook the mixture for a couple of minutes before stirring in some soy sauce and tomato puree, plus a few tablespoons of flour. So those of you that are familiar to my YouTube channel, you probably know what I'm going to be adding to this dish to make it have that richness that it needs to be classed as kind of like a steak and ale pie. What I'm going to be using is coffee and Marmite. Both of those ingredients have that real richness, umami-ness, depth of flavour, smoky notes, everything that we need in this pie. So it may sound a little crazy, but get them in now so that they can release all their flavours. And I'm also going to be adding some vacuum packed chestnuts, just because it's after Christmas now. I had loads of these hanging around. I'm going to add them. You don't have to add them, but they add a nice texture. This has got umami flavour. This is starting to take shape now, but it wouldn't be steak and ale or mushroom and ale pie without the ale. So I picked up a really good quality bottle of Welsh ale. Use whatever dark malty ale of your choice. So what I'm doing also is just scraping the bottom of the pan and just get any flavour that's stuck behind there. It'll just add real richness. I'm gonna add a bay leaf and then some vegetable stock. Let the pie filling bubble away for about 20 minutes, then let it cool to room temperature in your pie dish, ready to roll the pastry on top. So by the way, you can use whatever pie. I'm using a lovely old bowl here. This is probably from over 100 years ago from France. I picked it up at a market and it'll be the perfect pie dish. Before I roll out my pastry, I'm gonna whip up a quick pastry glaze by mixing together some maple syrup, some non-dairy milk and a little bit of olive oil. Roll the pastry to around 3 mil thick, big enough to fit over your pie dish. So I'm just using this plate as a guide to know how big to cut this circle, and all those layers that we folded into this pastry are now going to be squashed down, running right through. So in theory, when it goes into the oven and cooks, it's going to rise up and create a really lovely flaky pastry. So I'm just crimping the edges with my hands here, sealing the pastry and sealing that lovely filling in. And then I'm going to poke some holes with a fork just to let the air out and then brush it with my glaze. It's as if a little bird has just walked all over it. Unfortunately, we're not filming at my house. We've got this lovely countryside cottage for a few days and I forgot to bring my pastry brush. But those of you that also don't have a pastry brush at this point, use some herbs. I'm going to use a rosemary brush instead. This is working a treat. Who needs a pastry brush? Just get some rosemary from your garden. I am so excited about this. Look at that, rustic and beautiful. I'm gonna get this in the oven now until lovely and crisp and golden. Heavyweight pie of the world. It's ready, guys. Let's get it out of the oven. You're not gonna believe how good this looks. Carefully, carefully. Oh my gosh. Look at that baby. It's passed the crisp test. Listen to this. Yes, let's dig in. Oh yeah. Oh, look how flaky it is. Oh yeah. Look at this. The pastry's so flaky as well. I can just tell by when I was cutting it open. Come on then, mother. Let's taste the lovely homemade pie. I can't wait to try the pastry, to be honest. Mmm.
Delicious.
Mmm.
Pastry is gorgeous, isn't it?
Thanks, Mum. Tastes like steak and ale pie to me. Mmm. So, after that magnificent pie, I need to do something extra special. Now, this dish is a famous British starter prawn cocktail. Now, what can I do without prawns? Of course, I'm going to call on the old friend mushrooms again. This is a mushroom heavy video. The dessert doesn't have any mushrooms in, I promise, but we're going to treat these mushrooms differently. I'm going to bread coat them in a tarragon and nori coating so they get that taste of the sea flavour. So that's what we're going to do first. Blitz up some nori in your blender until it's a fine crumb. Oh, that's perfect. Nori confetti. You just want some fine flakes, basically. Then add it to a bowl with some breadcrumbs, some salt and some dried tarragon. Then in another bowl, I'm going to mix together some flour with a little bit of water and a splash of oil to make a batter. Then we'll dip the mushrooms first into some flour, then into the batter and then into the breadcrumbs. Once they're lovely and coated, we'll get them cooking. Right, so that's the shrimp coated. We got to cook these now. And obviously prawn cocktail, traditionally the prawn isn't breaded like this, but I just wanted to add some more texture to the dish. This is my twist to this one. Well, it's already a twist because we're using mushrooms and not prawns, but you know what I mean. Anyway, I'm gonna cook these by gently frying them in a little oil in my cast iron pan. Cook them for a few minutes until they're lovely and golden and crisp. Then once they are crisp, remove them from the oil using a slotted spoon or a spider. Get them onto a plate lined with kitchen paper to soak up any excess oil. Look at the shape on that mushroom now. Does that resemble a shrimp or prawn by any chance? Season them with salt, then set them aside, and then we can make the Mary Rose sauce, which is the famous prawn cocktail sauce. So in a mixing bowl, I'm gonna whip together some mayonnaise, some ketchup, soy sauce, pinch of salt and pepper, some Tabasco for a little bit of spice. Traditionally, always brandy is added, so I'm gonna add a small amount of that, a pinch of cayenne, and a squeeze of lemon juice. I just remembered I picked up some vegan fish sauce from the supermarket specifically for this dish, so I'm gonna add it. Can't get hold of it, don't worry, it may be good. Just fold all this together. Oh, I didn't put the lemon juice in. I just did a crazy thing just to put you off that I forgot to put this in. And just whip it up until you've got no lumps. That brings back some memories. No prawn cocktail crisps. This is what this tastes like. All right, this may be a little bit weird, this dish. Even Tom, cameraman Tom, is thinking, what on earth is he doing here? He's never had prawn cocktail before. But anyway, traditionally served in a glass like this. It's kind of weird, I know, but it's a famous British dish apparently. I'm also going to be serving one on a plate as well, a little bit more modern. And I've got my garnishes. We've got some lovely ice gem lettuce, some baby lettuce leaves, some chives and spring onion. And also I'm going to be using some avocado, which isn't too traditional, but that's my twist. So to serve your mushroom prawn cocktail, first up, get your lettuce in your glasses or on your plate. Top them with the mushrooms, a little bit of chopped avocado, some of that lovely dressing, then garnish with some fresh mint leaves, some chopped chives and spring onions, and a little bit of lime. Now all we need is lashings of sauce over the top. I never thought I'd be making a prawn cocktail on my YouTube channel, a mushroom prawn cocktail. Let's give this a taste, and Tom is super weirded out by this, so I need to get him to taste this on camera. Tom, you think this is the weirdest dish in the world? It is kind of weird. You can try it in the glass as well. All right, this is the mushroom prawn cocktail. Enjoy.
This feels like a prank.
It's not a prank, I promise. It should all work together.
How do I even eat this?
Drink it.
That was really good. Perfect crunch flavours.
Do you get a bit of everything?
Pretty much, yeah.
I had a bit of mint, bit of chive, the sauce and the prawn and the lettuce. All works like a marriage made in heaven. Maybe I just invented a dish here. The mushroom prawn cocktail. I bet that's never been done before. So we've got to end the video with an iconic British dessert, of course. Something sweet, something that you may not have heard of, especially if you're from outside the UK. Bread and butter pudding. One of my favourites growing up. This is a simple dessert that is so warming and hearty and comforting, especially on a cold winter's day. And it means you can use up leftover stale bread, or things like croissants you can use too. The first thing we need to do is make this luxurious creamy custard. Now I'm making a plant-based version, it's simple. What you need to do is get some oat or soy cream into a saucepan, add some sugar and some vanilla bean paste, get that heating up, and meanwhile I'm going to whisk together some non-dairy milk with some corn flour. That's going to help thicken up the custard. When the cream has come to a simmer, add the corn flour and milk mixture. So just use a spatula or a whisk or something just to gently stir this so nothing catches. It's going to thicken up because of that corn flour now, making a really nice custard. I'm going to be using some lovely apricot jam on my bread, and also we're going to be serving this with some poached pears on top that I'm going to caramelize too. So it's going to be delicious. It's going to be more than enough flavors. Slice your bread into thick slices, then butter it with some butter and my jam over the top. Then lay it neatly into your baking dish. So once we've got this baking dish filled up, we're going to pour the custard over the top, and that custard is going to be absorbed by this lovely bread. It's going to go in all the crevices, everything's going to get to know one another, and then I'm going to sprinkle over some lovely spices, and we're going to get it in the oven. And then whilst it's in the oven, it's poached pear time. Now you can serve it just on its own, but I've decided I'm going to make some poached pears and caramelize them because that'll be the perfect topping with some ice cream as well. So let's get our custard all over the top. Tom, cue cinematic custard shots. See, I'm just covering it all in this lovely custard. It's going to continue to get thicker when it's in the oven, and it's going to be absorbed into the lovely bread. I'm just going to grate over some nutmeg, star anise and cinnamon. At home, just use mixed ground spice. I just don't have it at the moment. Just a sprinkle of sugar, then I'm going to get it into the oven until lovely and golden. For the poached pears, into a saucepan, I'm going to add some water, followed by some vanilla bean paste, caster sugar, star anise and a cinnamon stick. Once that comes to a simmer, I'm going to add my peeled pears and cook them for about 6 to 8 minutes. Smells good. So the pears are going to have a little bathe in there now for about 8 minutes. Then I'll get them out and caramelize them in some sugar. Then we should be able to serve the bread and butter pudding. Now that the pears are cooked, I'm going to get them into my non-stick pan with some caster sugar and a little bit of butter. We're going to create almost like a caramel, and then we'll serve them on top of the bread and butter pudding, which is nearly ready. There we go. Look at that. I never thought I'd be making a bread and butter pudding on my YouTube channel. It's humble, it's unique, it's delicious and indulgent, it's simple to make. It's the perfect dessert, I must say, in the winter. Guys, don't forget to subscribe, please like, share, all that good stuff. Recipe books are on my website. Mum and Dad and Tom, come and get some bread and butter pudding. See you soon.